Hello there, fandoms of the world. My name is The Geek Theorist, and welcome to my review/analysis of RWBY, Volume 4, Episode 5. After taking a week off for the Thanksgiving holiday, it's time to check back up on the world of Remnant, and more specifically, the region of Menagerie. Be sure to leave a like for another RWBY review, and let's get right into things. Episode 5 starts off with the boat Blake and Sun had been traveling on arriving in Menagerie, and we get our first look at the home of the Faunus. I just want to say here that I absolutely love what Roosterteeth has done with Menagerie. The seemingly Asian-inspired architecture is really beautiful, and it's nice to finally be seeing regions of this massive world outside of Beacon and what we're used to. From the start, we've been promised a very vivid and well-built world, and to finally be seeing all that Remnant has to offer, it's pretty awesome. From here, Blake and Sun walk around the area discussing Menagerie and its history. A lot of what is said here is reiterated from the world of Remnant on the Faunus, but if you missed that, essentially what happened is that after the war between the humans and the Faunus were given the island of Menagerie to make their home. But, as Blake states during this episode, the island is made up mostly of desert, and as a result, the inhabitable areas have become extremely overcrowded. Now, since this episode was very short, I have the time and opportunity now to discuss my feelings about the human versus Faunus storyline of RWBY. I may expand on this another time in a full video, but basically, for me at least, it feels like perhaps this plotline isn't being treated with the kind of tact that it deserves and requires. It's becoming more and more clear just how much discrimination the Faunus truly face. Even after winning the war and being given their own island, it feels very much like the humans simply pushed them off and forced them into living this way, and that the Faunus very much have gotten the short end of the stick throughout history. But then, the faction who chooses to fight this oppression, the ones who are fighting back against the humans, are the villains of this story. And I understand the White Fang are evil. I know that they were a large factor in the fall of Beacon and the taking of innocent lives. However, when it comes to this kind of story, it really shouldn't be that simple. This storyline is a clear allegory for racism, if it can even be called an allegory, and the writers are vilifying a marginalized group for standing up against their oppressors. Basically what I'm trying to say is, yes, the White Fang have done some terrible things, but that's because the writers made that happen. The writers chose to make it a matter of black and white, of good and evil, and I think this kind of storyline calls for more gray area. And sure, they could turn things around somewhere down the line to play off that moral struggle and make things a little less cut and dry. But as of right now, I'm having concerns because we're seeing more and more of just how bad things have been for the Faunus, and yet there's still no doubt that the White Fang are completely evil. But, moving on, Blake tells Sun that they're heading towards her home, at which point Sun asks which one is hers, and Blake reveals that her home is the largest one in the center of the city. They head to the house, and after entering, they are greeted by Blake's parents. I think it came as a surprise to many, including myself, that Blake does in fact have a family, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Also, at this point, is there any question that Blake is probably not white? It seems this volume, with the new style, her skin has taken on a slightly darker tone, and when you combine that with the architecture of Menagerie, her affinity for ninjas of love, and her mother's skin tone, I think it's pretty apparent that Blake is not white, or at least it would seem. But moving on, Blake's son and Blake's family sit down to talk, and after some semi-forced straight meeting the parents nonsense, there's a knock at the door, which is revealed to be two White Fang members, the two White Fang members from Yang's part of this season's opening. The two members talk to Blake's father, and we learn that he used to be the leader of the White Fang, before he stepped down to become chieftain of Menagerie. The two members also claim that the Veil branch of the White Fang is merely a splinter group, following Adam's orders, and that they are not following the orders of the White Fang's true leader, Sienna Khan. However, we later find out that these claims are false, as after being dismissed, the two Fox Faunus state that they plan to tell Adam of Blake's whereabouts. Meanwhile, back inside, we get the greatest moment of Volume 4 so far.
So, those guys were creepy.
I really don't like you.
I totally don't have an anti-Sun agenda. The episode wraps up with Tyrion visiting the inn that Crow was staying at in the last episode. He approaches the waitress that Crow had spoken to, asking her if she could help him find someone, presumably Ruby, and the episode ends. All in all, there was a lot to like about this episode, but also some things that were a bit annoying or just didn't quite feel right. It was great to learn more about Blake's backstory and her parents, as well as see more of the world of Remnant. However, there were moments where Sun got a bit annoying with his interjections, and I'm starting to find it strange that Blake has yet to mention the other members of Team RWBY at any point. However, my concerns about Blake's character aside, this was still a decent episode. And as such, it gets a B- rating. Certainly not a bad episode, but not one of the best either. So that's it for today's RWBY review. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did, as well as leave a comment below telling me your thoughts on this video or on the new episode as a whole. This has been The Geek Theorist. Until next time.
Yeah.